Hello, welcome to Guides to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
I'm William.
And we are here to tell you a spooky tale today. A tale of old and a tale of just this week.
That's right. Yeah, there are a lot of, horrific things, a lot of haunted places that we consider to have been something that occurred in the past. Right. But all these stories do stretch to the present day. And I don't know if you've been watching the headlines, but there's been recent news about a very famous haunted spot. We're going to talk about that on this episode.
That's right. But William, before we get started, I want to mention that I am starting a new project. So on Thursday, August 1st, I'm going to be debuting my new show on youtube.com/talkbomb called Dearly Departed Pop. So it's going to be a show about TV shows, possibly some movies that are no longer with us, things that have been canceled, things that you just haven't thought about in a while that you're like, oh man. And I'm going to discuss them live with you guys the first Thursday of every month. So the deal is you don't have to watch these shows in order to watch Dearly Departed Pop and enjoy it, because I'm going to recap the show or the movie or whatever in the beginning of every episode of Dearly Departed Pop, then go into my musings on things that jumped out to me about the show while I was watching it.
You're going to be spoiling it and stuff too, right?
Big time spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler-laden show. So it might either be the kind of thing where you like spoilery things and they make you excited and want to watch that sort of thing, or if you're somebody who knows that you might want to watch whatever I'm talking about and don't want to be spoiled, then you might want to back away from this and revisit it later after you've watched the show, because it's going to be spoiler, spoiler, spoiler all over the place. And because it's a live stream, there's going to be a chat going like there is for Guides to the Unknown every week, where people can talk to each other. But something that's a little bit different about this show is that you can talk to me in real time. And I'm going to talk back to you as the show goes. So it's really a discussion between me and whoever is in the chat. But I wanted to mention that you don't have to engage in the chat thing at all to watch the show. So I think if I were me, not knowing as much about live streams and hearing this, I might be like, oh, that sounds cool, but like, I don't really want to chat with anybody and I don't really want to chat with Chris. I'd rather just watch this. Nobody's going to know that you're in there watching it unless you literally type in and say, I'm here. Hey, what's up? You can totally watch this and just lurk on it and just enjoy it and not participate in any way. There's no required audience participation. That's my nightmare.
Yeah.
You
can just sit and watch it and enjoy it. Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. So, and also there's going to be a replay available of the show immediately after the show is done. So you can also, if you can't make it on the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can always just go to youtube.com/talkbomb after that, and the replay will be available. And the replay will be available for you to watch at your leisure forever.
Perfect.
So let me know what you guys think. Definitely, if you're into it, come watch the show live or later, but let me know what you think of it. I'm starting it off as a once monthly first Thursday of the month live stream, but I'm open to the idea of doing it more often and maybe even as a podcast or something if people are into it. So let me know what you think. You can also follow Dearly Departed Pop now on social media. It's at Dearly Departed Pop on Instagram. It's facebook.com/Dearly Departed Pop, and it's Departed Pop on Twitter because it was too long.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, I know.
What's the first thing you're doing?
The first thing I'm doing is the show Harper's Island. That was a whodunity slasher on CBS I just recently blew through, and I think it's gonna be really fun to talk about.
Where'd you blow through it? Somewhere legitimate?
Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime, so people could theoretically watch a bunch of this in preparation for your live stream.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
But if you don't want to, you don't have to. So in these live streams, I'm going to summarize the thing that I am talking about so that if you want to just kind of pop in and listen, you'll find out what the deal is overall. And then I'll go into things that particularly stood out to me that I really enjoyed. So you can either watch in advance if you want to be on the same page as me, or you can just watch the YouTube video as is or the live stream as is, and you'll understand what I'm talking about to a degree.
Cool.
So because of that, spoilers, obviously. It's going to be a very, very spoilery show. I'm not going to try to hedge bets or anything. So be aware of that, but I think it'll be really fun. Hopefully you guys can talk to each other in the chat. I'll also be talking to the chat as it goes, and I think it'll be a good time.
Hell yeah. I think I'm going to be in that chat.
I bet you will.
I'm very curious about Harper's Island. I've never been as obsessed with reality TV or pop culture to the degree that you are. Harper's Island is definitely on my radar, but not very much. So I'm really excited to hear about it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I love it. Periodically, it seems like TV tries to merge reality with whodunits.
Well, this isn't reality. It's a scripted show.
Oh, I thought it was.
No.
I thought that was part of the jam, was that there was some element of like, you can either, or maybe reality is the wrong thing to say, but like on American Idol, you can like vote who's in or whatever.
Oh.
I thought there was like audience participation on that show somehow.
No.
Maybe they marketed it to me poorly then, because maybe I just misunderstood. Whatever.
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, are you thinking of that show Whodunit that we both watched?
No, but I did love that.
Yes, that's
maybe
something that I'm going to be talking about perhaps next, but we'll see. Yeah.
Maybe I just remember Harper's Island as looking so rough around the edges that I assumed it was reality TV.
It's not.
Really?
No, it's like a network, like well-produced show.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm in for a reckoning.
I wonder if you're just thinking of something else, maybe. I'm not sure. Well, whatever.
Then I wonder what the hell that thing. I'll do some research. I'll look into it too.
We'll figure it out.
Whatever. We'll figure it out.
One by one. That's like the tagline for her.
Oh, thank God. Kristen's trying out a cool new thing.
I just wanted to leave you with that.
Yeah. Until next time.
One by one. So, like, instead of having, like, I don't know, like a long theme thing or title card or whatever, it's just like a slash and then like some quick shots from the show and then a little kid's voice going one by one.
Oh, boy.
It's nothing like that, by the way.
Boy.
It is a little kid's voice saying one by one in a way that I think is funny, but.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Dearly Departed Pop.
Yep.
Coming at you.
First Thursday of every month.
Sweet.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, now on to our topic for the night. We are going to talk about the Conjuring house, the house whose story is told in the Conjuring movies. You may have heard of it before, and Lorraine Warren visited it. And it's the story of the Perron family. Do you think that's how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the events that actually transpired and caused the whole Conjuring thing to come to, why am I saying this all weird? I'm going to talk about the history of the house, the haunted events that happened there, and kind of the real story. And then Will is going to cover...
like all the pop culture, the movie, the stuff the movie did that I think must be different from the real story, though I didn't research the real story.
Yes, and I also didn't really research the movie, and I haven't seen it in a long time. So,
yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about some of the recent stuff that's been in headlines recently about the Perron house, because we've got something coming our way.
Perron house is popping.
Something wicked this way comes. But you know what? I guess I'll just say it this way. You may think the story is over, but it hasn't even begun. Zak Bagans is involved in the story, is what I mean. But we'll get to that later.
I can't wait for that.
Oh, I can wait.
Like the actual event to happen.
I can wait.
Well, we had such a good time watching Zak Bagans' haunted museum live stream last Halloween.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
So,
from what I can tell, this thing isn't going to be live. I'm wondering if it's because they learned their lesson last year. Maybe it will be. I'm not seeing anywhere anyone say that it's going to be live.
I think I assumed.
Yeah.
Okay. I made an ass of you and me. Well, what can you do?
Well, last year he was caught. He was caught.
Oh, God. Caught with his pants that I'm sure have tons of straps and buckles on them. Caught them down.
Yeah, all his chains, his like belt chain or wallet chain. What is that thing?
Wallet chain.
Way down his pants.
Okay, so the movie The Conjuring came out in 2013, and I'm sure that a lot of you probably know about it. It's a big deal movie. It spawned what's known as the Conjuring cinematic universe that includes all of the Conjuring movies, Annabelle, La Llorona, stuff like that.
The Nun.
The Nun.
And coming up, The Crooked Man.
That's right. Yeah, I'm into that. I really like the Conjuring movies, like Conjuring 1 and 2. From what I remember, I do. Again, like I said, I haven't seen either of these movies, and I don't know how long, but I think upon them fondly.
I'm excited to talk about them.
Okay. Yeah, so just in case, it's the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren going to a haunted house in Rhode Island to take care of business, and business ends up taking care of them.
That's true.
Yeah. So here's the deal. The Perron family moved into this like big 14-room farmhouse in Rhode Island in 1970. They're a big family. The parents are named Carolyn and Roger, and then they had 5 daughters. So the daughter, Andrea Perron, who's the oldest, has been the most vocal, kind of seemingly, about all the events that happened in the house. She actually wrote a book about the house. that is what was turned into the Conjuring movie. Like, no?
Kind of.
Well, yeah. But like, it's the basis because they didn't allow Ed and Lorraine Warren to write about the events of the house.
Oh, is that
like,
right?
Like, it's not from a book that Ed and Lorraine Warren wrote or anything. It's the source material was, what is it? Dark. What is it called? Do you remember?
I have it in my notes.
Hang on, I'll get to it first.
House of Darkness.
House of Darkness, House of Light.
Yeah. So parts 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. So she was writing that, and she said somehow Hollywood came a-calling. I did a little research on Andrea Perron because she has been kind of the most vocal family member, and I thought that I could find the most like sound bites of Andrea talking about it that would give me the inside scoop. And I found a video that I used for a lot of rich source material, which is her 2014 appearance on San Antonio Living.
Oh.
Yes. So she says that they experienced weird stuff in the house instantly, like right away. She said when they were moving into the house that she was walking with a box and she saw this guy in their dining room that she didn't recognize. And she said she was polite, so she like smiled and said hi to him, but he wasn't even looking at her or acknowledging her at all. He was just looking at the older man who was leaving the house. Like she, he's a solid man they knew. It was the guy who was moving out of the house. He seemed to only be paying attention to him. And then when she walked a little bit further from the dining room to the kitchen and she saw her mom, she was like, who's the other guy in the dining room? And she was like, there's no other guy in the dining room.
Yeah.
So then the sisters, when they came in and were moving stuff, said that they came in freaking out and said that they had seen a guy in the dining room disappear before their eyes.
Whoa.
So the tone is really set on their new 14-room farmhouse.
Yeah, night one.
Yeah, exactly. Instantly weird. They started noticing other things almost right away, and it was pretty kind of standard haunted house stuff, like objects being moved around, or just not being where they left them, stuff being like shoved under beds. They heard sounds in the kitchen when no one was in there. It seemed like the kitchen was kind of like a hot spot. Somehow there would be piles of dirt left on the kitchen floor, like right after Carolyn, the mom, had cleaned the floor. And I find that that'd be very, very alarming to me. Like, that's more than just kind of like, oh, I heard a weird sound. Things are being moved around. You could kind of think to yourself that, that's just a trick of your mind or whatever. It's so deliberate in action to have a floor just be cleaned and then have piles of dirt just on the floor. Like, not even that they tracked dirt in and the floor is dirty. It just seems so deliberate and pointed and mean.
I feel like there's something about that I could convince myself I'm seeing things. It'd be like, maybe there's a crack in the ceiling I can't really see.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean?
But
like,
I don't know. Like, if it was a crack in the ceiling that you couldn't really see, how would it leave like a pile of dirt?
I guess pile could mean anything from like, a teeny tiny anthill to like a mountain.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? A pile is a vague enough term.
I guess an anthill constitutes a pile. I picture it being slightly larger, so I guess that's why I found it alarming. I guess I picture like a handful of dirt is at different spots in the floor, not connected to each other, is what I imagine.
Yeah.
And that's scary to me.
Yeah, you know who does that perfectly?
Who leaves piles of dirt on the floor perfectly?
I tracked mud into the house the other day, so I know what I'm talking about. No, in the movie Poltergeist, when they spot something that like reoccur. I'm always fascinated by like the rules that hauntings appear to follow. I really like this idea that you can sort of actually, I'll jump to something from the Conjuring movie from later on. The mother, Carolyn Perron, goes to the Warrens and asks them to come investigate her house. And Ed is initially skeptical and he's like, listen, usually these things have a completely rational explanation. And I find that to be such a curious phrase to use because the way that people talk about hauntings, it's like, I cleaned the floor and then there are still dirt piles.
Yeah.
So I cleaned the floor again, then there's still dirt. And it's like, okay, well you can explain that rationally.
Right.
Every time you clean the floor, a dirt pile shows up. That's a rule.
Yeah, exactly. You've now established a rule with this. Gotcha.
And like Poltergeist did that, right? So like in the kitchen in Poltergeist, if you sit in a certain spot or put a chair in a certain spot, it slides across the floor to the other wall.
Right.
And their reaction to it isn't ghost. Their reaction to it is like, this is really wild.
Yeah, like
what
there's
the
some
hell
sort of like
do you think this thing is?
electromagnetic thing happening.
And they almost have fun with it. Like if that happened, I don't know if I'd be scared. I'd be like, watch this.
Yeah.
Watch me wash the floor and then look. There's dirt again. Like you would.
I guess
play
you
with
would find a way to rationalize it too. I guess
you'd play with the cause and effect of it.
Yes, and I guess I would think like depending on how big this pile is we're talking about, if it's more of like an anthill thing, I guess I might be like, Are these things there like all the time? I just notice them more right after I clean because it's like a pristine black and white sort of thing, like clean versus dirty.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I would think you'd have to rationalize things away. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I like the idea of being like, okay, we've established a cause and effect, a rule thing.
It seems like there was a lot of patterns to hauntings. You do this, that happens. Play with that. Try to recreate it. You can like apply the scientific method to ghosts. Yeah. Which I guess is what people do.
I guess that's what people try to do. Yeah. But it's cool to think about.
Yeah.
Let me see. So, messing the kitchen floor aside, it seemed like the ghosts were pretty harmless at first. Like the girls, it sounds like, enjoyed them and kind of played with them.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
What?
The same kind of thing. Like the immediate fear of something is almost, I feel like the human instinct, and especially I guess kids, that makes sense, is to not overthink it.
Right.
And like as an adult, I'm sure I would be like really perturbed by something. As a kid, kids like have such powerful imaginations.
Yes.
And have not experienced so many things. It's just like the older you get, the more you learn what's not plausible in reality.
Right. They don't know that this isn't necessarily possible.
Yeah,
They're just experiencing something and they trust that rather than like rationalizing it away.
I like that.
Yeah, totally. Something you said, I just want to go back to, I just remembered. You mentioned something about the Conjuring movie. Did you rewatch clips of it or anything like that today by any chance?
No.
Okay. All right.
I did watch the whole movie.
Oh, you watched the whole movie?
I put it on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's on Netflix?
Mm-hmm. It's on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. I can't claim that I sat there and got engrossed in the cinema. I had work to do.
Yeah.
But like I had it on and I sort of like charted out some of the things that happen in the movies, the sort of lore of it and everything like that. Yeah.
Did Patrick Wilson have a Boston accent in the movie?
Sometimes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, and I mentioned this on the show like a while ago or something. I have the audiobook of The Demonologist, which is a book. I don't know if it's by Ed and Lorraine Warren. It's definitely about Ed and Lorraine Warren. I haven't listened to it in a long time. Either way, the author of it, who's reading as Ed, has this heavy Boston accent that sounds like a fake Boston accent to me. And then when we did the episode about Lorraine Warren's dolls, which was like a handful of episodes ago, I watched a video of actual Ed Warren speaking. And because I had listened to this audiobook, I assumed that he was going to have this heavy Boston accent, and he didn't have one. And I was like, so then where did this guy get this inspiration from? And I wondered if it was Patrick Wilson in the movies, maybe.
No, they're both, Ed and Lorraine Warren in the movie are very sort of like middle of the road. Nothing about them is extreme. Yeah. So they have kind of an accent, but not really. They kind of have like motivation and a little bit of darkness to them, but not really. They're kind of a little too saccharine and sweet. And there are a bunch of scenes of Lorraine combing their daughter's hair in the beginning. And it really paints a portrait of them as being kind of perfect. Not that having a Boston accent would make you
No, I know what you're saying, but like
it's just everything about them.
Neutrality.
Everything is neutral. Yeah. Everything is neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. So I don't know where the hell this guy picked this up. Maybe,
all right.
I can't even attempt to do what I'm
Chapter 2.
It was kind of ridiculous. I kind of flubbed it though.
Tell me that you got that. That's the only way. That's the only way I can get to it is Jimmy Fallon's Boston character from SNL.
Oh my God. Tell me you got that. Yeah, that's right. That's so funny. Those are good clips to look up.
Those are great clips.
Really
Everyone look up
idea.
those clips of the Boston teens from SNL.
Yeah, we've been mutually watching a lot of SNL clips and like sending them to each other. That's a good one to get into.
Shout out to Beck Bennett.
We love Beck Bennett.
We love Beck Bennett.
Who knew? We found out in the last couple of days.
Smells like regular lamps to me.
It's going to look like a Cuisinart in here. It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, So, like I said, the girls felt like it was pretty okay, basically. Like, they were playing with the ghosts. Something that Andrea said was that the ghosts even tucked them in and gave them kisses on the forehead at night. Okay. But then after a little while, things started kind of taking a turn for the nasty. So the youngest daughter, Cindy, ran into bed with Andrea, who was the oldest. So Cindy youngest, Andrea oldest. So they had a decent age gap. Ran into bed because she was upset and scared, and said that she heard a bunch of voices all together, like a chorus of people say, "There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall."
Oh.
Yeah. And I should mention too, this farmhouse was very, very old. I think they said that it was built in like the mid 1700s. So it had been around for a lot of history and a lot of war and things like that. So very scary, obviously. The family started waking up to the overwhelming smell of rotting flesh at 5:15 every morning. That became like their alarm clock. Not great. Their bed started rising from the floor here and there. All very scary stuff. They avoided going into the dirt floor cellar that they had. And I said, is that where the dirt piles came from in the kitchen?
Oh,
they had a store of dirt already in the house that you could just like bring right up there.
Yeah.
But the dad had to go down there kind of frequently because the heating equipment that was in the cellar would stop working mysteriously. And I wrote in my notes, or could it not be that mysterious? It's just like a very old farmhouse that was built in the 1700s, but whatevsies. And he said when he went down there, he would feel a, quote, cold, stinking presence behind him.
Ugh, a stinking presence.
I know. Cold and stinking, I think, are scarier together.
Yeah.
Because not to be gross as usual, I feel like you usually think about like a hot stink.
Well, hot because like it implies like some level of like decomposition or something.
Right, exactly. The idea of a cold, stinking presence is like creepy to me in a different way. The combination of those two ideas, it's cold and yet it smells.
Yeah.
Because also with smells, like it's usually like, oh, it's hot and that can sometimes bring about a smell or whatever. It's like, doesn't feel possible. It's obviously possible, but they don't usually go together, which makes it, I like that quote.
Yeah.
So because these things were happening, Carolyn, the mom, started doing research into the house and getting really, really into the history of things. And she found out that it had previously been in the ownership of the same family for 8 generations until they moved into it. They're the first family that's not of this other family to live in it for years and years and years. So since the 1700s, I guess. And then they moved in 1970. So like 200 years, potentially. She also found out that there had been a bunch of strange deaths that had happened in the house or on the property over the years. A child had died in a nearby creek. There was a murder. Several people had hung themselves in different places on the property. So there were just a lot of like heavy deaths that were kind of associated. And it made sense to her because when they moved in, it seemed like the house was kind of notorious to their neighbors. Like they were kind of like, oh, you're moving into the farmhouse or whatever. And the neighbors had apparently said to them that they should leave the lights on at night, but they hadn't elaborated about that. I would be like a dog with a bone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like I would not let my neighbors rest until they told me what they meant.
It's always fascinating.
I hear people say things like that where they're like, yeah, my husband said something about, another woman, whatever.
I know that one of my husband's uncles was a serial killer, but that's really all I know about it.
Yeah, things like that. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't find out more?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not an option not to find out more.
Absolutely not. I would not be able to rest.
I would relentlessly be going like, explain to me what you heard. I'm going to call your parents. I gotta know. I have to know. What do you mean leave the lights on at night?
Yeah.
Don't walk away from me.
Yeah, I just moved into this humongous house. Like, this is scary. What do you mean leave all the lights on?
What are you, cuckoo?
What are you, cuckoo?
Tell me the story.
So she learned a little bit about the story on her own. And I want to give just a little bit of warning. It's a little bit graphic, upsetting stuff having to do with a baby. Baby death.
Yeah.
So she learned about in her research a woman named Bathsheba Sherman. So I know that Bathsheba is kind of like the lead bad guy in the Conjuring movie. She was somebody who lived there in the mid 1800s. So there were rumors that Bathsheba was a Satanist and that she had been involved in the death of an infant. And I guess it wasn't totally clear through records whether it was like the child of a neighbor or of another family member or whatever. But there was apparently an infant that was left in her care for a little while that died. And then investigators found the cause to be the baby having been stabbed through the skull with a knitting needle. So this led to rumors that that was a sacrifice to the devil that Bathsheba made. And there was an investigation, but there wasn't enough evidence to hold a trial and actually, like have Bathsheba held accountable. But public opinion is a different thing. And people really thought that Bathsheba did this. It seemed like she did. And because of that, she pretty much kept herself on the farm because it seems like the townspeople
isolated her.
Yeah, we're not about Bathsheba.
Yeah.
Where she had her own child or children. I found both. I'm not sure. So the townspeople were aware of reports of wrongdoing, or no, they weren't aware of any reports of wrongdoing to her child or children, but reports of mistreating her staff. I looked into it. Like, I just think it's interesting how people talk about this stuff, and not to get into a whole thing, but I was like, does staff mean slaves?
I know.
So I was also just kind of wondering, like, the context of townspeople hearing this, but not acting on it in any way or doing anything like that. And so I Googled stuff about slavery in the 1800s in Rhode Island. And it turns out Rhode Island, has a horrendous history with slavery. That was just kind of it was just weird happenstance, I'm looking at Rhode Island slavery, but in the mid 1800s, they had a larger slave to non-slave population than any other state in the North, despite passing America's first anti-slavery statute in 1652, but then basically ignoring it because of loopholes.
Whoa.
It's just kind of interesting. I thought I would mention it because I was curious about the townspeople hearing this and not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's obviously because, like, not that anybody who had slaves was regarding them super highly, but they obviously, Rhode Island has a very particular history with slaves.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
It's like a weird loophole thing. You know, I can't explain it now.
Sure,
I don't remember. I could have when I looked it up, but it's interesting if you're interested in that sort of thing. I just clocked it because, like, when I went to Charleston, like, years ago with Ryan, we did this house tour, and they kept talking about footmen during the tour. They were talking about, like, the procedure for dinner in this house. It was like a mansion. And they were like, yeah, there was a system where the woman of the house had different finger symbols that showed the footmen who'd be waiting around the room what to do. So she lifted her pinky, it means refresh everybody's drinks. If she lifted her ring finger, it means, like, get more rolls or whatever.
Oh my God.
And so I was listening to this, and, like, I really was not even trying to be inflammatory, although that'd be fine, but I just wasn't. I was just like, they keep saying footmen. What the hell is that? I was like, does that mean slaves? So then when it was time for questions, I was like, are footmen slaves? And the guy was like, yes, they are.
Wow.
And I was like,
quite frankly, listen, we've all got a horrific
totally
history with slavery.
Of course. Yeah.
Shying away from it,
I know,
is less helpful.
Yes.
than confronting it.
Yeah, it's so weird and just
acknowledging it as part of the legacy.
Quite literally. But I know, I was just like, footmen can't be slaves. Why would they say that?
It covers up,
right?
Like some of the ugliness that I think is, like, important to acknowledge.
Of course, I was kind of shocked. I kind of half expected him to be like, "Oh no, it's a term for whatever." Because I was just like, he can't be not saying slaves.
Yeah, she had a thing where everyone has to watch her hands.
Yeah,
everyone that she's got doing stuff for her has to stare at her hands all the time in case she raises her pinky.
Right.
That doesn't sound like she's like paying the staff or something.
Totally. And it was just such a weird word that I'm not used to hearing in, like, American context. I was like, footmen.
Yeah.
So weird. So I don't know. I just have a curiosity about when, like, during this time period, people are like, yeah, the staff. I'm like, is that staff?
Yeah. Let's think of, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I don't think so.
When you say staff.
Yeah. You mean slaves and you don't want to say it.
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, so she had a reputation for treating likely her slaves poorly, and people were just aware of it but didn't really do anything about it. But apparently she was, like, physically and mentally abusive to them as far as, like, starvation as punishment. So, like, still, like, not a nice person, obviously, a terrible person. But even so, even with all that, the witch rumors kind of died down over time. I guess they thought that she was just, like, a tough cookie, but not a witch necessarily, until she died at the age of 73 at home, and the doctor said that she had, quote, turned to stone. And he was referring to kind of a weird case of paralysis. Okay. But he used the phrase, I guess, turned to stone, which kicked back up rumors of her being a witch. People were like, okay, this makes sense. She turned to stone. That must mean that she had to deal with the devil for beauty all her life. And the price was that when she died, she would be turned to stone in her death. Because I guess the devil's just like a merry prankster who just wants people to turn to stone.
Well, it's the classic monkey's paw, sort of like you'll get what you want, or like a reversal of your wish.
Yeah, a little bit of a Dorian Gray thing. Like, you can be beautiful, but you're gonna be, like, real messed up in death. Yeah, like it's all gonna come home to roost. You're gonna lose all moisture. Because moisture is the key to beauty. Moisture is the essence of wetness.
Yes, and
wetness is the essence of beauty,
as we all know.
So if you take that all away, the lack of beauty is a lack of moisture. You turn to stone. Mm-hmm. So Carolyn read all of this, and she kind of felt like it made sense, and she felt like Bathsheba in particular was tormenting her, because she thought that she was hiding things from her, making her feel like she was going nuts, kind of just like tormenting her in that way, and draining her energy. Carolyn had a wound that made it look like she was stabbed in the leg with a knitting needle, which was Bathsheba's, supposed weapon of choice. Lorraine Warren said that may have been her weapon of choice, as I wrote, in life as in death. So she was still kind of like doing stuff in that way. And then on the other hand, maybe so I didn't find a lot about Bathsheba's like romantic life, but I guess if we're going with the myth that Bathsheba wanted beauty so badly in exchange for, turning to stone, maybe she wants that beauty because she's like maybe a feminine gal likes to turn on the charm or whatever. So on the other hand, Roger received innuendos and caresses from Bathsheba.
Whoa.
But like kind of through Carolyn. I guess Carolyn would kind of like be turning it on in a way that's like not normal to Carolyn. And they're like, oh, I think Bathsheba's like up to no good or something.
Using like 1800s moves.
Pulling up just like a little bit of her pants to show some angle.
Yeah, exactly.
And Roger's just like, what?
What is happening?
Yeah. Just caressing like his elbow because she thinks that's like the height of sensuality. He's just like, ugh.
Carolyn, are you okay? Yeah. Do you feel okay?
You don't seem fine.
Call me Bathsheba.
Yeah.
No.
I won't.
Refuse.
So on San Antonio Living, my new favorite talk show, Andrea said that her mom started changing kind of dramatically around this period, but slowly. Like she changed a lot, but it wasn't like night and day, basically. She said that she started wearing vintage clothing. And my question is, Bathsheba lived in like the 1800s. If we're going off the thing that like Bathsheba's kind of inheriting her, like did Bathsheba just really like the, maybe 50s or whatever in the 70s?
Vintage clothing.
How vintage are
in
we
the
talking?
70s? Yeah, exactly.
But far be it from me. And using weird archaic language that she had never used before, like the word yeoman. And what Andrea said was, referring to the menfolk in town, which I would argue is still a weird way to say men.
Yeah. The menfolk.
She was like, she's using archaic language like yeoman, to describe the menfolk in town. And I was like, that's the normal way to describe that? Okay.
That's funny.
I know.
The menfolk.
The menfolk in town.
Time makes fools of us all.
I mean,
she's trying to talk about how her mom said something that was so untimely and bizarre.
This is from 2014.
Yeah, I know, but she's not from 2014. You know what I'm saying?
I guess. The phrase menfolk got baked in.
Yeah, she was the oldest daughter in this story in 1971.
Yes. Fair enough. But menfolk.
Cut her a break.
Yeah, but like, does mom use the phrase menfolk? No. You know what I mean? I think they were about the same age.
Menfolk.
Can you hear mom saying it? I don't think so.
No, I can't really hear anyone saying it.
No.
All right, I take it back. Let's not be fair to
it's all weird.
to Andrea Perron?
Yes, Andrea Perron. Who I do like, but I was just like, if we're talking about weird ways to refer to men, I don't think calling them menfolk is...
I actually have a weird quote from her later.
Okay. I mean, I like her. There's a lot of weird stuff. So they felt like their mom was kind of slipping away. She was just like so immersed in this like world of the house and obsessed with the history of it and everything. And Andrea said that she kind of had to step up as a mother figure because they just felt like she was a little bit tuned out.
Wow.
So this is when the Warrens stepped in. A family friend of the parents called the Warrens to come out to the house and see what was up. And they came out a number of times over about a period of a year and a half, Andrea said. And their last visit was when they had a seance where Carolyn started speaking in tongues. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room.
Wow.
And so when this happened, they say that Roger got super pissed and he was just like, I don't like this. Like, I'm worried about my wife's well-being that we're like, cause this was a new event. There had been nothing about this before. And he's like, something else got opened up and brought in, which is what Andrea also said. Yeah. He was like, we're done with you guys. We're done. So they left and they continued to live there in the house. Like they wanted to move apparently, but they didn't really have money to sell the farm and get another place. They lived in the house. And Andrea felt that whatever was let in that night that they had the seance, even though it was really scary, maybe it was such a powerful force that it kind of like bullied and subdued the other forces in the house. Huh. There wasn't as much regular kind of ghosty activity going on a daily basis, but the mother wasn't doing well physically. She started to get skinnier and skinnier, she said, and kind of wasting away. Oh. So I think the idea is that maybe whatever came in during the seance decided to kind of like prey on Carolyn, but also kind of somehow silence the other ghosts that were more benign to begin with into not doing so much stuff. So there wasn't like big bombastic scary things going on, but Carolyn just seemed to not be doing well until something changed. So Andrea in the interview describes one night that her mother said that she was in the dining room and that a full family materialized in front of Carolyn's eyes. And it was a family who was like eating at the table, and Carolyn saw the father, supposedly nudge another member of the family and point at Carolyn, the mother. And that moment, Carolyn realized that she was the ghost to them.
Oh.
So this is like people from another dimension who are now seeing her.
Whoa.
And this is when Andrea says her mother realized that they were, quote, living in a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. And that's when she fought her way back to us.
Wow.
So again, I had never researched this before. I barely remember the Conjuring movie. I was not expecting that at all. And I also only found it in that interview. So maybe I'm sure it's in her books, but it wasn't in any roundup of like the real story of the Conjuring house. Like never.
That's fascinating.
So I was very surprised
sent like a chill up my spine.
I know.
That's really interesting.
I know. I had never heard that in connection with this before. And I love that idea. That is such a cool idea.
I love that.
That like you're the ghost to somebody else. That they're like, oh my God, did you see that?
Well, it's been done in films and stuff. But
but I love it.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's also kind of like The Shining a little bit. Like you've always been here.
Right.
Like everyone just resides in that house simultaneously.
Exactly. They're just layers upon layers. And there is something just about the phrase about it's a living in a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. Like a big farmhouse is a really good setting for a portal like that.
Yep.
It conjures a lot of stuff.
Sure. Even the idea of like it wasn't a family of ghosts sitting around a table eating.
Yeah.
Ghosts don't eat.
Right.
It was a family sitting around a table eating, but she was seeing them through the veil that separates multiple dimensions.
Right. Exactly. It's super cool.
A ghost going like, oh my God, do you see that?
Yeah.
To you?
Yeah. And you're like, I'm the normal one. What are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're the freak.
Yeah.
I'm real.
Yeah.
And that would be so
unsettling.
scary.
Yes. But I guess something that it jolted her.
Yeah. If we saw someone suddenly standing over there and then we looked at them and then they just went, I'm real.
Yeah.
How scary would that be?
I don't know.
Pointing at themselves. I'm real.
Yeah.
And then we just can't see them again. The moment has passed. The planets went out of alignment. We can't see them anymore right after that moment. You're just like, there's another reality where this house exists.
Right.
Someone else lives in it at the same time as us right now.
Totally. Mind blowing to think about. That's like, I mean, I can't remember who said it. It's probably a common thing, but the idea of like, our population is huge. There would have to be like, if ghosts are a thing, and like, I guess this is if there was a theory that like all ghosts are all together all the time, whatever. Because there was a theory of different universes and people being able to come in different times. But like the idea that like this room must be packed shoulder to shoulder.
I know.
With ghosts.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. I've always thought that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the mom started doing better and better, basically. And they eventually got money up to move. And they moved to she wanted to make a point, farm in Georgia. She said it had been built in like the last 20 years. They didn't want to move to another like super old place. And the haunting of the Perron family pretty much stopped until Lorraine Warren called a couple of years into them living there. Andrea said she didn't know how she got their phone number or whatever, but she called them at the Georgia house and she spoke to Carolyn and asked if she could write about their story. And Carolyn said no. Like, they just wanted to leave it in the past. They don't want it to be a public thing. She said no. And Lorraine kept like being like, but please, it would, it'd be good for the people to read or whatever. And Carolyn finally said, let me talk to Roger about it. He's not home right now and I'll get back to you. So then the next day, or maybe even that night. Yeah, that night. I'm sorry. Roger still wasn't home yet. A big door in the house fell on Carolyn.
Oh.
And dislocated her shoulder. And it made her think that there's something out there that doesn't want this story told in this way. And called Lorraine the next day and said, it's a no-go. Told her what happened. Was like, no, don't write about this story.
Wow.
It's not happening. But then 30 years later, Andrea decided that she wanted to write this story. Her mom and everybody were on board with it. On San Antonio Living, she said that she felt like I don't even know if she used these words, but basically like the consciousness of the world has changed a little bit and people are a little bit more accepting of ideas like this. So it was the right time to go public with the story. And that's when she wrote House of Darkness, House of Light in 2011. And they named it that because she said that they had really wonderful times in that house. Like it wasn't all negative and scary. They also had just normal good family times, but also it was a really like enlightening, liberating experience going through all of that, even when it was scary, because she said she still doesn't understand all of it, but she said seeing it with her own eyes showed her that there is life after death and kind of it liberated her to live fully and not be afraid of death.
Wow.
So there's a lot of light to the story for her.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Like I said, she said that during the writing of that, Hollywood came a call. And I don't know how any of that would have worked, but it seems like The Conjuring was kind of inspired by House of Darkness, House of Light.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah.
Man.
I know.
That's wild.
Right?
Yeah.
So take her away.
Okay. Well, I can kind of pick up exactly where you left off in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't have this part in my notes, but I remember it from looking it up. So there was an idea to do this movie for a long time. As you said, the movie came out in 2013. You said that her book came out when? 2011? 2011. So that does line up neatly, except I know that one of the producers of the movie had been trying to get it made for over a decade.
Okay.
After Ed and Lorraine Warren, or just Ed, or just Lorraine, I'm not sure, played this producer a tape of one of their recordings of Carolyn Perron.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, this producer kept trying to get the movie made. Maybe it was made more easy when this book came out about it.
Because maybe there were like rights to buy that would be a little bit smoother or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. But either way, The Conjuring did come out in 2013. It's directed by James Wan, who rose to prominence from the Saw franchise. He's one of the creators of Saw. And did Dead Silence, did Insidious, and then he worked on this movie, which was written by Chad Hayes and Carrie W. Hayes, who I believe are siblings.
Hey, like the Rogers twins.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that?
Spooky Sibs.
Yeah, Spooky Sibs.
And Lorraine Warren and Andrea Perron served as consultants to the director and screenwriters.
Andrea Perron loves James Wan.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I love James Wan.
I do too. Join the club.
They claim the movie is accurate to the real story of what happened during the 10 years that they were in that house. But I also have this note here. When the Perrons visited the set in North Carolina, they felt a cool wind whip throughout the set that didn't seem to shake the trees.
Uh-oh.
This is
maybe a bit of a spirit followed them.
Well,
that's what they're saying.
The spirit of fun, I think it might be. Making fun. I think this harkens back to like...
Wait, who said that?
One of the Perrons. I don't know, probably Andrea Perron. I don't know. I'm not sure. But this, I think, is just more in keeping with the long tradition of saying that something spooky happened on the set of a horror film.
Yeah.
And obviously, The Conjuring itself, as a movie and as a franchise, is sort of a throwback. It's sort of a throwback to horror films from the 70s. I think James Wan, because it was a period piece and because it was actually just sort of unconventional for the 2010s, shot it with like the camera is 100 feet away from the thing he's filming and there's a slow zoom in on it.
Oh, okay.
It's filmed with a lot of...
Man, I don't remember it at all.
Oh, it's filmed... I love the way it's filmed. It's filmed with a lot of throwback style.
That's cool.
Even the typography of the logo for The Conjuring feels very much like The Exorcist.
Yes. Yeah.
The sort of presentation of it I find really, really appealing.
Yeah. I kept getting it mixed up in my mind with that Ethan Hawke movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. There were several movies that were the same movie around this time. You're thinking of Sinister.
Yes, that is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. He moves into a house and there's a Bagul who's been in the house the whole time.
Yep.
Then, of course, Insidious is about a family.
Right.
With Patrick Wilson from The Conjuring.
He's part of the Wan players.
Yep. There's a monster bride in The Conjuring. There's a monster nun.
Yeah.
The monster bride in Insidious is played by the same actor who plays Bathsheba in The Conjuring.
Oh, really?
There's just a lot of DNA of these movies that's all the same. I think several of them have, not James Gandolfini. Who is the guy from that Stanley Kubrick movie? Full Metal Jacket?
Oh, something, 3 names, right?
Yeah. Ryan Spader Dunkless or something.
I think it's Ryan Spader Dunkless. Let me see.
I can't remember his name. Anyway.
Yeah.
Allie hates him.
I do too.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy who's also in the, what's it called? Leatherface remake. What's that called?
Leatherface remake?
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from a few years ago.
He is?
Yeah, isn't he the disgusting sheriff or whatever?
Oh, you're thinking of R. Lee Ermey.
That is who I'm thinking of.
No. I'm talking about Private Poyle or Doyle or Pyle from that movie.
I obviously don't know.
Again, 3 names. I have no idea if any of them are correct.
Right.
But anyway, I think there are multiple movies where he appears over Skype to be like, yes, it's a Bagul you've got.
Yeah.
This
is making me want to watch these.
It's called Kartuski. And the ancient Babylonians. It's like on a weekend he filmed 5 movies where he's the guy that has all the info over Skype.
I love that. All this appeals to me.
Well, more behind the scenes haunting stuff from The Conjuring.
Yeah.
When the Hayes brothers and Lorraine Warren would chat on the phone about the script, they kept getting cut off by weird sounds and a lot of static. Then, out of nowhere, the line would go dead.
Oh, my God.
Haunting? Or do they just have AT&T?
Oh, my God, Will. Boost Mobile fails them again.
James Wan had just adopted a new puppy when he was working on the script, and he said that was working on it, and the puppy would look off in the corner where there was nothing and start growling, and then track something moving across the room.
That is freaky.
Follow it with its eyes.
Yeah.
James Wan could see nothing.
That is unsettling when they do stuff like that.
Yeah. Some weird things that are different from the movie. The Warrens were kicked out, as you mentioned. I believe, actually, the father of the Perron family, Roger?
Yep.
Punched Ed Warren in the face.
Oh, man.
In the movie, they're accepted with open arms. And even...
Well, I guess they made amends later.
Yeah.
Get that cheddar.
Ed Warren and Roger Perron repair a car together. I don't know what's going on. In the movie...
They're best friends.
In the movie, Ed and Lorraine Warren spend a lot of time at the house, and there's a scene where they're, like, doing laundry for the family.
Uh-huh.
And then Ed is, like, just, like, there's, like, a busted old car.
They're just, like, good people?
They're just good people. They're just great people, Kristen.
Good, wholesome folk.
There's a moment where they're like, where's Ed? And they look over, and there's, like, a car that's clearly not going to run. It's, like, an old car that's, like, rusted. And, like, it may as well not even have wheels on it. Like, this thing is busted. And he's, like, got the hood up and he's tinkering with stuff. And then Roger comes over and he's like, Ed, can I give you a hand? He's like, yeah, can you hold the carburetor? I'm like, what is happening right now? Do the investigation.
Yeah.
Well, you're not their friends.
Is it boring? Is there a lot of stuff like this in it? Because the fact that you've told me about 2 chores that they're doing makes me concerned that this movie isn't as good as I remember. Not that I hold it in the highest regard, but I remember it being good.
I liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
I liked it, but with a big fat asterisk.
Sure.
I do not understand why Ed and Lorraine Warren are hanging sheets.
That's weird.
Outside the house. It sets up a decent scare, which I'll get into.
I was about to say, did like a sheet blow into like a scary shape or something like that?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
They've already isolated that there is a spooky old ghosty, but Ed and Lorraine Warren are doing laundry for the Perrons.
Right. Because they got all those kids.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
It's just crazy.
They're very accommodating people.
And Lorraine Warren goes to like pull a pin to let a sheet off the line. And then a wind is brewing, a storm is brewing. And the sheet gets ripped off the line and starts to billow away. But then it catches around the form of a human.
That's super cool.
And then it moves again. And it billows up to the side of the house and slams against the window and slides off. And in the window now is the form of Bathsheba. Ooh. So it was right behind Lorraine, invisible. The sheet carries it up to the window.
Yeah.
So it like travels up to the window with the sheet, with the wind.
That's super cool.
And then it's inside the house and Lorraine's like, get out of there! And goes running. And it's great.
That's like a magician-y trick. You know what I mean? How they like slam something and it like seems to go through something solid that it wouldn't be able to penetrate. I like that.
It's interesting because they suggest some element of practicality to the proceedings, which I find very, very, very appealing.
Yeah.
Even though the setup requires Lorraine Warren to be doing the parents' laundry.
You know what? Whatever gets us there.
Just needed an excuse.
Exactly.
They just needed an excuse for her to be standing there.
Yeah.
She couldn't have been talking to anyone.
Yeah, just talking in the backyard where there's existing laundry on a line.
Don't know.
I guess somebody's got to let it fly.
Someone's got to let it fly. I don't know. I do not know. In the movie, Annabelle the doll is the cold open.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, yeah. Annabelle the doll is a significant part of the movie. At one point, Bathsheba gains control of it. By the way.
In The Conjuring?
Yes. By the way. Spoilers for The Conjuring? Did we already say that we were going to do that? I'm going to spoil. I've already spoiled The Conjuring, and I will not stop.
Yeah.
Try to stop me. Anyway, Annabelle is the cold open of this movie.
Okay.
It's peculiar.
Weird.
Anyway, there are these nurses that are talking to Ed and Lorraine Warren about how the doll is possessed, and they're like, spirits don't possess dolls, okay? They're probably manipulating the doll to make it seem as if it's possessed. I'm like, that's very close to the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking about that in the Annabelle episode, and I think it's a cool distinction.
It's a cool distinction.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, no, this spirit had said that it liked the doll, so we said, well, you can go into the doll if you want.
Yeah, yes.
Now, we know in real life that Annabelle the doll is a Raggedy Ann doll.
Right.
In the movie universe, they've created this Annabelle doll that I think has become pretty iconic.
Yes, I think people would be surprised if they didn't already know already that that's not what the doll looks like at all.
Yes, and it's like a spooky porcelain doll thing with like a gray face and rouged cheeks.
Right.
The implication of the cold open is that these nursing students
Like, wanted this doll?
already owned the doll. I assumed it was found.
Right.
It looks all busted.
Weird.
I don't know why they have
Why would
this
you want that in your home?
dirty old doll already.
That they love and they invited a spirit into.
They love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, later in the movie, Bathsheba
Yeah.
will go to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house
Okay.
to try to catch their daughter.
Okay.
And it sits in a rocking chair with Annabelle on its lap. And Annabelle turns its head.
How did Annabelle get there?
Annabelle's in the museum. It's in their house.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying at the Perron's house, Bathsheba was there with Annabelle the doll.
No.
I gotcha. Okay.
Bathsheba goes to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house to get their daughter.
Yeah.
For a minute before we get back to the... Yeah. It's so weird. It has nothing to do with anything. They just needed a scare.
Yeah, totally.
Viewers beware. Okay, stuff from the movie that differs from real life, or just stuff from the movie.
Yeah, sure.
This first one, it appears to have happened in real life. You said that they woke up and they smelled something awful.
Yes. Oh, is that what you were remarking on at the beginning?
Yes.
Yep.
So 2 of the girls sleep in the same bedroom, which I find very appealing for a horror setup, because
totally.
one of them can experience something and be like, "Oh my god, did you see that?"
Right.
And it feels in the movie, it feels very much like The Haunting of Hill House, which obviously came later on Netflix. So maybe The Haunting of Hill House was echoing back to this.
Yeah. Or just echoing haunted house stories.
Could be.
You know what I mean?
But it was great.
Yeah.
Very frightening setups. But so one of the girls goes, "Stop farting, it really stinks." And the other one goes, "Don't blame that on me." Which was just like a really good rebuttal. Don't blame that on me. Like, really?
And also, you're the only 2 in there, so you're just saying it was you.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Don't blame that on me.
Don't blame that on me.
Really long rebuttal.
Taking the long road.
So weird. I found out that the movie was given an R rating, though it contains no graphic violence. It's relatively bloodless. There's not a lot of profanity. There's no nudity or any of the typical stuff you'd point to be like, give that an R rating. The MPAA's reasoning, too damn spooky.
Yeah, Andrea
intense.
Perron mentioned that in the interview.
So scary. Gotta give it an
Needs
R
an
rating.
R,
They said there's nothing you could cut to give this a PG-13.
It's pretty sweet.
Carolyn Perron, over the course of the movie, it happens early on. Roger goes like, "You've got another bruise on your back." She increasingly gets covered in mystery bruises, which is all sort of foreshadowing of what's happening to her with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
The youngest daughter has an imaginary friend named Rory. He appears in a spooky music box. If you turn the crank, there's a little mirror. You open the top, there's a little mirror, and you turn the crank. And when the song stops, he'll appear behind you.
Okay.
And it is used to wonderful effect.
Yeah.
Lorraine Warren does it later in the movie, and they zoom in on the mirror that's rotating.
I can picture. I feel like that's a popular still from the movie if you Google things.
Yeah. And there's a little pilgrim boy.
Yeah. Also, just that music box sound is so creepy. That's a perfect combination.
Oh, they picked they've got a great little ditty that the thing plays. It's real spooky. It's a good little spooky horror movie song. Yeah. And man, after I saw that pilgrim boy,
oh, you were quaking in your buckled shoes. I'll bet.
I had
you were dressed like a
oatmeal.
You were just like a pilgrim boy yourself, right?
Yeah, I was quakering in my boots. Scared me so bad the buckle on my hat popped open.
Popped right off. My tri-corner hat flew right back.
The first things that really happen in the movie are just sort of weird, unsettling things. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah, but
they're huge things, but it's it's not on the same level as humans being thrown across rooms or something like that. Dog is killed.
Okay.
Almost immediately.
Not good.
I've turned a corner. There's a website called Does the Dog Die? That a lot of people go to be like, I don't know if I want to watch this movie. Is the dog going to die? Is the dog going to die?
Yeah.
Our dog Molly barks at the TV whenever there's an animal on it. We've had her for 6.5 years. I used to be the kind of person that when an animal died in a movie, it would hurt way worse than a human dying.
Totally.
I've turned a corner. If I see a dog in a movie, I'm like, Get that thing out of this movie ASAP before Molly notices. Get that thing out of the... I don't care how.
By whatever means necessary. You're going to does the dog die hoping.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not going to get killed in real life. Yeah. I can separate fact from fiction now. Right. Get that dog out of the film. This movie, The Conjuring, to its credit.
Instant.
That dog is in like one scene.
You must have been in heaven.
I was in heaven.
In ecstasy to see this dog die.
It's dead. I was dancing. Oh, what a night. So excited. Bird smashes against the side of the house.
Classic.
And then
Scary.
There's a game they play in the movie called Hide and Clap.
Oh, yeah. I remember this. Kind of.
Not a real game.
No.
Made up for the purposes of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful.
Right. I remember that being a really cool, creepy scene.
Yes. You put on a blindfold, and then people go to hide. Mm-hmm. And then you stumble around your old 200-year-old house with creaking floorboards that you just moved into and you don't know the layout like the back of your hand. You walk around that place wearing a blindfold.
Sure. And with stairs, I'd imagine.
Oh, yes. And when you can't find people right away, you ask them to clap. You go like, all right, first clap. And then they clap and you at least know what direction to go in. Yeah. The ghosts start playing. Yeah. And it is so good.
That's really good.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. I don't really know why the hell the ghosts are playing the game. Maybe they're literally playing it for fun.
That's true. I guess if you're going with the idea, like Andrea said, that they were actually like friends with the ghosts at first, like maybe they were just playing for fun.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a great point.
Maybe.
Yeah, there is an implication that it was one of the children ghosts that is clapping. Yeah. Because it comes from an armoire that later we'll find out a ghost kid goes into. Yeah. It's like the armoire is in front of a hole in the wall that the ghost kid hides in. Yeah. But yeah, then there's a moment where where Carolyn Perron is looking down a long staircase and she's just got a match that's lighting everything. Mm-hmm. And then I just remembered a pair of hands coming out of the darkness next to her and clapping next to her face. Ooh. But actually what happens is a voice goes, "Wanna play hide and clap?" Ooh. Clap, clap. And I kind of wish...
it was just the claps.
Kind of wish it was just the claps.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Simpler.
Yeah, but it's great.
Yeah.
It's still great. The movie says that
Also, wait, she's already playing hide and clap at this point, right?
They do it a few times. Okay. At this moment, she's just scared.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The movie says that Bathsheba died by being hung from a spooky old tree. Mm-hmm.
That's part of what was getting me mixed up between this movie and Sinister. Yeah. Because in Sinister, I know there are people who are hanging from trees.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm going to get into, here's what the movie says Bathsheba's deal is. Cool. Because it differs from what happened in real life. Mm-hmm. Though some of it obviously overlaps. Bathsheba Sherman, born Bathsheba Thayer, was born in 1812 and was claimed to have been related to Marytown Eastie, one of the many executed for witchcraft in the Salem witch trials of 1692. So Bathsheba is descended from witches. 51 years later, in 1863, Bathsheba married a rich farmer under the surname Sherman and gave birth to a child. When the child was 7 days old, her husband caught her attempting to sacrifice her baby to the devil. Exposed, Bathsheba climbed to the top of a tree, proclaimed her love for Satan, and cursed all those who would take her land. Bathsheba then hung herself, committing suicide. Cause of death, 3:07 a.m. Now, you mentioned in the true history that at 5:15 a.m. spooky things would happen. Right. Spooky things happen in The Conjuring at 3:07 a.m. Okay. Bathsheba's spirit continued to reside on the land, haunting her former homestead. True to her curse, Bathsheba would haunt the families that move into her house. Bathsheba would torment the family continually and finally possess the family's mother to kill the children before forcing the mothers to commit suicide. The spirits of Bathsheba's victims continued to reside in the house along with her, living in constant fear of her curse.
And that's a good story.
It's a good story. Yeah. They turn it into like a sort of decent urban legend kind of a thing. Yeah. And I believe there's a moment...
it's neat and less sprawling than just that there have been generations of this family and then there are lots of kind of disparate deaths. Yeah. Like it's cleaner for a movie.
And I actually meant to pay attention to this in the movie and I don't remember... I guess I didn't zone into the movie well enough to catch this, but I've always been under the impression that Bathsheba, the plot of land the Perron house is on, is Bathsheba's land. But back in those days, Bathsheba's plot of land was huge. It was like 12 the equivalent of 12 lots today just got divided up over time or something like that. And they're like, my God, so this plot of land was divided. But where the Perron house is, it's technically still Bathsheba's land. Oh. And it always made me think like, oh, so are the other plots of land also dealing with Bathsheba hauntings?
Yeah, yeah.
Does that ring a bell to you? Is there another story that does that?
Yes, there is.
Doesn't that ring a big bell?
I think could it be Sinister? Seriously.
I mean, honestly, saying that it might be Sinister makes me think it might just be this, and I didn't catch it.
I know. I'm not sure. But no, that rings a huge bell.
It's such a good idea for a ghost story to be like, yeah, it was on Bathsheba's land. That's this house. And then go like, whoa, no, people used to own way more land than we do today.
Right, exactly. So like all of this, like we would have to get very far away to not be on Bathsheba's land, further than you would think.
I love that.
Yeah, that is a cool idea.
At one point, Bathsheba stupidly is crouched on top of that armoire.
Okay, I can picture.
The kids walk in the room, and then they zoom in on Bathsheba's face, going like, and she pounces off the top of the armoire, like on all fours, on top of a kid. And it looks
weird.
Stupid.
Yeah.
We cut to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
It sounds very like horror movie of a certain time.
Yes.
Yeah. There's like a pretty like specific aesthetic associated with The Conjuring and the universe, and even some other like James Wan stuff. Yeah. And like I feel like it sounds right.
Like just an oddly broad moment for just like a quick second.
Right.
We cut to Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are teaching a class about haunting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they did a lot of like lectures and things like that about hauntings, and paranormal stuff.
Ed gives the rules of an infestation, of a possession of a haunting. Yeah. Again, I love the rules of these things. Also, this played to me for a second very much like a Scream moment, like Randy would be giving a lecture about slashers. It all starts with infestation. There are essentially 3 steps: infestation, oppression, possession. Infestation. That's when you hear those like whispers. Yeah. And it's all small little things. You can convince yourself you're not really experiencing it. Oppression. The most emotionally weak person is endlessly tormented, essentially buttering them up for possession. Full-on possession. Yeah. Ed and Lorraine Warren finally go to the house. Lorraine, there's kind of a cool thing where she's like walking around there telling stories of like things that they've experienced, and she's just kind of observing. Then they do a weird thing where they flash back, and she explains that the entire time she was walking through the house, she could see spirits.
Like the okay, yeah.
And they literally flash back to like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay.
A little weird.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Strange. Yeah.
Then Lorraine Warren goes out by a spooky old tree. Ed comes out to talk to her, and you hear just the sound of a rope. You know, that creaking sound of like a heavy
like
rope.
A squeak. Yeah.
And she's like turning and looking terrified, and Ed's like, "What, babe? You're like, my life.
Don't you know the deal? What do you think?
Babe, you're the light of my life."
Yeah.
And nasty old Bathsheba's toes are dangling right above his shoulder because he's standing where she hung herself. Yeah. That's kind of cool too.
That sounds cool.
There's a moment where Ed and Lorraine Warren are home, and he goes like, I recorded Carolyn, but her voice didn't show up on the tape. And he plays it, and it's just Ed's voice on the tape going like, so tell me about what happened when you moved in here. Yeah. Silence, silence, silence. Uh-huh. And what else? There's just nothing there. And I was like, that's cool. But he just goes, he hits stop, and he's like, isn't that weird? What'd you find? I'm like, spend more time on that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Do they go back to that at all or anything?
Kind of. But they go back to it in a way that I think diminishes how cool and weird it is to record someone and not have their voice show up on the tape. Right. That's very, very interesting. Yes. Later, like a few seconds later, a ghost turns on the recorder. And instead of the nothing we heard a moment ago, it's a bunch of voices wailing and speaking in Latin. And it's fine. Yeah, but it's far less cool than like being like, there must be something wrong with the tape because you have my half, but not her half.
Sometimes just like mundane things are very scary. Yeah. Like adding more to it brings it into like a little bit of a realm of cartoonishness, even camp. Just a little bit, where it was scarier just as is.
I leaned in when Ed was like, her voice isn't on the tape. I was like, oh, are we going to find out that like something's not obeying the laws of
like physics and whatever,
and like electronics can't pick everything up. It's kind of cool. They do a very charming 70s found footage thing for a little bit. When Ed and Lorraine Warren go back to the house, they bring 2 assistants with them, which is I think exactly what happens in Insidious. Okay, there are 2 assistants in the Insidious movies. One of them is played by Lee Whannell, who was James Wan's partner who created Saw with him. Yep. And I'm just like, man,
that is weird.
Insidious I've not seen.
You haven't seen it at all?
No, I saw part of Insidious 2 where Patrick Wilson does a Jack Nicholson impression for a while.
Oh my God. I know I've seen Insidious. I literally couldn't tell you anything about it. That what you just said rings a bell, but I don't remember.
I would gladly watch it.
I would too.
I've always been under the impression that Insidious 2, The Conjuring 2, Sinister,
are like all kind of the same movie.
they're just the same movie.
Yes.
And they are all fun.
Yeah.
But they're just all the same movie. They just keep making the same
Right.
movie. But yeah, so they bring their assistants, and then they have a camera. They're like gonna film stuff, and Ed, it's very Blair Witch, but it's very sort of like refined Blair Witch, and it's like a period piece.
Yeah.
Ed has a tape recorder thing with a strap. He's got that over his shoulders, just hanging by his side. In his other hand, wired to the tape recorder, is one of those long, old, thin microphones. It looks like a shotgun mic.
Yeah.
It looks like a boom.
Yep.
But it's a handheld thing. He's the only one who has that. And when we go into this view, they go like into the basement to film this, all that we see is there's a spotlight. There's a light from the top of the camera.
Yeah.
Just a big flash bulb that's lighting the scene. So everything is light in the middle, and then the frame of the film fades to black on all other sides. And the audio we hear is implied to just be what Ed is holding.
Yeah.
So we
That's
can
cool.
hear him a little bit. Whenever Lorraine speaks, she sounds distant, even though she's standing right next to him in the frame. So it creates this sort of dissonance, this uncomfortability. And it's all very, very charming, and makes me want a period piece 70s found footage movie.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of found footage movies. Blair Witch is essentially the exception that proves the rule. I feel like they really exceeded. And they kind of sort of created the found footage thing.
Yeah.
But this movie, honestly, to me was like, man, go a little campier with it, be a little playful with it, and make it look good still. Like it's HD 70s footage somehow.
Yeah.
But it looks wonderful.
That's awesome.
More. It was so good.
I wonder if we're headed at all for a 70s kind of renaissance, because the 80s, I think we are doing to death. Like it's been done. You know what I mean? We have Stranger Things, and it's so humongous. The new season of American Horror Story that's coming out is 80s slasher, which it just feels very done as far as horror goes. I wonder if we'll ever hit a 70s kind of time, or even earlier. Because now I think about it, like you think of 80s horror, and kind of rightfully so. There's a lot of sweet 80s horror, but it would be cool to see more from other eras.
Yeah, you're right.
I wonder if we'll keep pushing back.
Maybe. I wonder, there's something that's, talk about Blair Witch. I mean, Blair Witch came out in what, 97?
Yeah.
98? Something like that?
Something like that.
That movie was so astronomically huge and paid attention to and controversial and interesting. And you would think that would have been the start of the found footage craze.
Right. But you're right. It took a long time. It wasn't until like 2004-05 when Paranormal Activity came out. Nobody wanted to touch it for a while because I think you'd endlessly be compared to Blair Witch. Always be. Yeah.
But then there were a bunch of found footage things in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I wonder if, it still has only been 6 years since The Conjuring, this movie, came out.
Right.
I wonder if people felt like, well, if we did that, we'd feel like a Conjuring.
It's always going to feel derivative of The
Let's
Conjuring.
wait for some time to pass and then let the 70s pop happen. Because this
impossible.
movie is very quintessentially like, it's almost a love letter to 70s horror filmmaking.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. I could see somebody doing something
I
like that.
wonder. I think 80s like lends itself so well to nostalgia because there's such like distinctive songs and distinctive looks to point to that you instantly know where you are. And maybe in the 70s, you're a little bit wishy-washy.
Yeah, maybe.
So I wonder if that's why there isn't as much of a thing.
Maybe.
But I'd be down for it.
It's very appealing.
Yeah.
Like this scene in the movie, as much as like I will complain about some things in this movie being a little precious, there are a lot of really incredibly well executed ideas.
Yeah.
Even ideas that aren't executed well in the movie are just really engaging
cool ideas,
and fascinating and like spooky. There's a really great spooky vibe in this movie. And man, having the characters be carrying this microphone that things sound a little distant in, but we can see it in the shot. I like that kind of
change too.
Yeah, it was great.
It wakes you up a little bit when movies do things like that.
It was really, really great.
Yeah.
I already told you about Lorraine doing laundry for the Perrons, so I'll just move on. I already told you that Bathsheba goes to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house.
Right. Hitches a ride.
Tries to get them.
Yeah. Well, they have a daughter. So
the movie ends with essentially Carolyn being full on possessed and trying to murder her daughter with a pair of scissors. And then they tie her to a chair. She psychically controls a shotgun and tries to shoot Ed. Ed speaks Latin and tries to do
he like exorcises her, right?
An exorcism, and he goes like, he's basically like, abracadabra, 1, 2, 3. Now it's time to see what we see. Reveal yourself.
Yeah.
And this bag, Lorraine wrapped Carolyn in a sheet. And then when he says, reveal yourself, the sheet rips open and you see Bathsheba's rubber face.
Okay.
Peeking out of them, and it looks all weird.
Yeah.
And then the only cool thing
Sounds
about
like a
it,
lot.
the only cool thing about it, all Bathsheba wants to do in Carolyn's body is kill a kid.
Kids. Yeah.
The kid is hiding and no one knows where the kid is. So one of the inspectors is running around trying to find the kid. Finally, he finds out that she went through that hole in the wall and somehow got under the floorboards, and she's under the floorboards in the kitchen. And so from
Which
upstairs,
is right above the basement, right?
From upstairs, he goes like, oh my God, I found her. She's in the floor under the kitchen. And Bathsheba essentially goes like, oh, I know where she is. And immediately like crawls away just to get at her. And it's really
like leaves Carolyn's body to like go.
No.
Oh, okay.
Carolyn gets away, but it's just like it was like she got like newly motivated to be like, oh, like forget all of you. You'll still try to impede me, but I can just go there and kill her real quick. Great. I know where she is right now. Tries to skid her away. And then Ed and Lorraine save the day by being like, remember what you told me. You love your daughter.
Yeah. And so like Carolyn triumphs over Bathsheba or something.
And pukes Bathsheba out.
Yeah, I picture that too with The Conjuring. That thing, is it upward like that? Or is that just in A Haunting in Connecticut?
Oh God!
I've never seen that.
It's downward. It's a downward upchuck.
Yeah. All right. I'm thinking of a north-facing upchuck from A Haunting in Connecticut.
Yeah, when that gross goo tree flies out of that boy's face.
So gross.
Yeah, that was on the trailer.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I just know that's a thing.
Yeah. And then like the sun rises.
Yeah, on a new day. It's a new time for the family.
Yeah, sure is. Sure is. So that's essentially The Conjuring, the movie.
Yeah.
And like they basically the idea is like they beefed it all up. They turned Bathsheba into more of a direct
like
villain with a motivation.
Yeah.
There are other ghosts in the movie that'll be like, she made me do it. So they start to sort of create this idea that Bathsheba possesses the mother, kills the kids.
Yeah.
But let's get into some of like the more recent revelations. There are not many about the haunting of the Perron house.
Yeah.
So I found an article in the Providence Journal Online. I'll try to drop some of these things in the show notes if you want to check them out. I've got a couple links and a couple videos.
Cool.
There was an article in 2014 about Norma Sutcliffe, then owner of this spooky old house. She's been digging into the real history of the house with a retired journalist named Kent Spotswood, saying, quote, there were no murders, no suicides. There's no reason a ghost would exist in this house. Leave us alone. It's not real.
Wow.
She said The Conjuring is ruining her life. She sued Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I have a vague memory of this.
She said she's been inundated with a torrent of people breaking her fences, trespassing, bothering her neighbors, people online talking about we should just break in. The retired journalist that she has been working with said that, oh no, this is actually in response to something that Andrea Perron said, which I'll get to in a second.
Okay.
So instead, Sutcliffe also wants to dispute the rumors about Bathsheba, sort of clear Bathsheba's name. Andrea Perron said in her books that it was in fact Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And so Mrs. Sutcliffe essentially did all this research to be like, yeah, Bathsheba is just like a lady. It was just like a normal lady
person
who like died of a stroke, and no one knew what it was, so they said she turned into stone.
Yeah,
like it's crazy the way that she's been demonized and has turned into like a movie villain. So Andrea Perron came back and said, "I'm not in dispute with Mrs. Sutcliffe about Bathsheba. That was the storyline of a made-up movie."
Oh.
It was a movie designed to highlight the career of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It was their version of events turned into a Hollywood feature film.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Because she wrote about it in her book.
Yeah.
So she, okay.
Now, the Providence Journal notes, Lorraine Warren did not respond to email requests for interviews.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say, I think that probably had more to do with her being quite elderly at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So I wrote here.
And by all accounts, not super duper well.
I wrote here, yeah, I've been trying to friend Mel Brooks on Snapchat for a while, and he hasn't returned my friend request. Huh, that's funny.
Suspicious. What's he trying to hide?
Yeah, what are you trying to hide, Mr. Brooks? You know, what's going on? I've been tweeting Carl Reiner. He won't get back to me. This is insane. We tried to email Lorraine Warren, and strangely,
Yeah, how odd.
she doesn't know her password. No. The hell that weird box is? She thinks it's full of demons. The vision board is talking to me again. Anyway.
Oh,
So
God.
Andrea Perron goes on to say she no longer thinks Bathsheba was to blame.
Okay.
She says that it was Lorraine Warren who came up with that. She now thinks it might have
Wow,
been.
this is quite a turnaround.
She now thinks it might have been a Mrs. John Arnold, who allegedly hung herself in the barn on the Perron property in the 18th century.
I think she brought this person up during the interview. This happened in like 2014, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so her appearance on San Antonio Living was also in 2014, where she's talking about all this stuff. So, I don't know. She had a quick turnaround.
Well, also, so that
Changed her
retired
mind
journalist,
quickly.
this is what I was
Yeah.
going to get into before, and I did it out of sequence.
Yeah.
The retired journalist, Kent Spotswood, also disagrees with that, saying there was a Mrs. John Arnold who hung herself, but it was in 1886, and it was in her own home, at least a mile from the Perron house.
Okay, interesting.
So whatever the identity of the spirit,
Yeah.
Andrea Perron says that she saw her. This is a quote from Andrea Perron about what
Okay.
she saw. She was hideous. Her head was hanging off her neck. Her head looked like a desiccated hornet's nest,
Ooh, I mean, that's
Covered-
an awesome image.
covered with cobwebs. She had hollow, vacant eyes, thin lips, jagged yellow teeth.
Oh my God.
How great is that?
I mean, that's awesome.
How great is that? Her head looked like a desiccated hornet's nest.
Go ahead, Andrea Perron.
Now, here's the other thing. I
Yeah.
brought up The Haunting of Hill House before.
Yeah, bent
Two
neck
kids.
lady.
Yeah, bent neck lady.
Totally.
Two kids sharing a bedroom,
Yeah.
beds side by side, looking off into the shadows and stuff.
Right.
There's like a moment in The Conjuring where one of the sisters goes like, "It's staring at us from behind the bedroom door."
Oy.
And then reading this about how her head was hanging off her neck. I don't
Yeah.
picture like nearly headless Nick, like
No,
almost
no,
decapitated. She's said to have hung herself. This
Right.
is bent neck lady.
Right, totally. The hornet head.
She added about the movie, it was so distant from the truth, it might as well be two stories, with the same characters sharing the same names.
Oh, man. She really turned around on what she had said previously.
She did, and I've got another
Yeah.
plot twist here.
Yeah.
So Norma Sutcliffe is the one who's upset and is like, "Leave me alone. I own the house. Leave me alone." Andrea Perron and Norma Sutcliffe used to be friends.
Oh.
They did a YouTube video together where they talked about the house, on which Norma said that she and others have heard voices and, seen spooky stuff happen, doors opening and closing, but never really took it seriously.
Ladies. Come on.
Norma now says she never would have done that video if she knew it was going to go online and knew that it was going to happen before a movie came out about this thing. Like putting her name and her face online.
Right.
Sort of like welcoming people to reach out to her.
That's a fair point.
So here's the weird thing that Andrea Perron said, because she says weird stuff periodically. She goes, now she wants to make all that disappear. You can't change horses in the middle of the stream and not expect to get wet.
I'm sorry?
You can't change horses in the middle of the stream and not expect to get wet.
You know that old chestnut.
We all say that phrase.
What the hell?
All the men folks say it.
Yeah.
In yonder village.
Yeah, the yeoman.
The yeoman. Yo, man.
Wow.
Also, Norma Sutcliffe posted an hour-long YouTube video where she takes down
Oh man.
the myth and the story of the haunting.
The girls are
of The Conjuring.
fighting. Yeah.
Well, she's not in this video. I don't think that she's gunning for
Andrea, okay.
Perron.
Yeah.
It's more like, let me tell you the real
Set
story.
the
Like,
story straight.
no one actually
record
died in the
straight.
house, stuff like that. I'll try to put that in the show notes too.
Wow.
In case anyone wants to see it. And then one final shocker about Norma Sutcliffe. She, despite wanting nothing to do with any of this stuff, she appeared in episode 7 of season 2 of Ghost Hunters,
Okay.
where she led the ghost hunters around a haunted house in
Just another haunted house.
a different haunted house.
This gal's all over the map.
She's all over the haunted house.
I don't know what to
game.
think about her.
I know.
Yeah.
And then I also found out that Ghost Hunters is about two plumbers by day who
Yes.
hunt ghosts at night.
They're like toilet rooters.
Yeah. Toilet rooters. Toilet rooters. Oh, we're toilet rooters. You mean plumbers? What are you talking about? No, we're toilet
I feel like
rooters.
the name of their company is something rooters.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. All right. Final pieces of information that I've got for you. The house is under new ownership. This is the big headline that you and I both saw. Yep. You shared it in the group and stuff. The Conjuring house, I guess Norma Sutcliffe sold. Yeah. And who she sold it to was Corey and Jennifer Heinzen. Corey has been staying there alone, waiting for his family to move down from Maine to join him.
Those aren't the same names as the sibling writers of The Conjuring.
No, that was the Hayes.
Hayes, okay.
That was the Hayes.
Yeah.
He described, Corey Heinzen, new owner, described doors opening and closing on their own, footsteps, knocking, disembodied voices. He said, last night we had a black mist in one of the rooms. It looked like smoke. It'll gather in one area and then it'll move. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Corey Heinzen is a paranormal investigator and was drawn to the job after hearing screams and cannons at a Civil War battlefield during his time in the military.
That's cool and freaky.
Cool? Weirdly, I didn't write this down because it was so tangential. This is an article, by the way, from today.
Yeah.
But so it quotes like his friend or something. They're like, one of Corey's friends
says he's a good guy. Believe him.
I don't believe in any of this stuff. But then he goes on to say, I almost think it's like we're seeing into other dimensions.
The friend said that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it carried no significance to me because I'm like, friend of a friend of whatever. Like, who cares? But then when you said the thing about Carolyn Perron seeing...
Maybe he's feeling out some sort of portal there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the big news.
Oh, yeah. You mean the big news.
The big news that we've all been waiting for.
That's right.
Everyone listen close, turn out the lights. This year, on Halloween night, the Travel Channel is airing a 2-hour special where the Ghost Adventures crew, led by Zak Bagans, will explore the Perron house. Possibly not live. Can't imagine why. Here's what Zak Bagans had to say about it.
I can't wait. I'm all over that.
The residual energy alone is palpable. And
it's really good Zak Bagans voice.
And the real-life house that inspired the Conjuring movies. I'm speechless.
Never.
That has been a dream of mine to investigate for years, and I can't believe it's finally happening. It's beyond legendary. I can't wait for viewers to experience this terrifying adventure with us.
Guess what? I can't wait to experience it with him.
I'll be there with bells on.
Yes.
What time should I arrive, Zak?
You just tell us the time and place. Place? One of our houses. Time? Halloween night.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely watching this, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Travel Channel, Halloween night.
Yeah, Travel Channel's a major, like, ghost programming hub. I don't even know if they do other things anymore. I'm sure they do, but they have, like, a million ghost shows.
Hey, Travel Channel, you want a comedy show about ghosts?
Yeah. Oh, by all means, I'll go wherever the hell you want, as long as it's not too far from home.
Spooky Sibs go to a haunted place?
Yeah.
Talk about it, do a little comedy show in there?
Mm-hmm. Imagine.
Good. Yeah. It'd be funny to do a stand-up special that's filmed like it's a paranormal reality show.
That's funny.
Like a close zoom on Kumail Nanjiani's face that occasionally... focuses on what's behind him instead of his...
Right. And you're just like, I don't know how to feel.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm off kilter.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be really fun. Stand up in a scary place.
Yeah. It's just a weird setting.
Yeah.
It just feels so, like, incongruous. You'd be like, I don't know if people would know to laugh or whatever.
Right.
They'd just be so, like, uptight.
Yeah.
It's a good excuse for people not laughing at your comedy.
True.
You're like, I was trying something experimental and I did it in a haunted house and people were just, like, not in the mood, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, like, can Dave Attell stand up under all that pressure?
Yeah. I'd love to find out.
Yeah.
I wish there were a show about it.
I know. Oh, my gosh. Hit me up.
Yeah.
Travel Channel. You know where to find us.
Please.
Or do you?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, everybody.
That's it. That's the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, you can find us everywhere on social media at GTTUpod. And you can join our private Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/GTTUpod or just searching Guide to the Unknown Secret Society in Facebook.
Yeah. And if you hit up patreon.com/GTTUpod, you can donate a little something back if you are so inclined. Please spread the word about the show. We would love it if you told your friends about us.
Yeah.
Shared an episode that you like, write about us, tag us in something.
Yeah, totally. We love having new members of like the Facebook group, of the community, new listeners who just enjoy this stuff. So by all means, tell people if you like it.
Yeah, please do. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week to talk about more spooky explorations from the world of mystery. But until that time comes, we must travel
Maybe with the Travel Channel.
Oh.
I wonder if the Travel Channel covers the Netherworld. Thar go we.
Bye.
Bye.